Hello, this is Paul Christensen, and I will be discussing an article by author Eunjin titled The Imitation Game, Reproductions of Goryeo Celadon in the 20th Century. Eunjin is a curator at the Museum of Oriental Ceramics in Osaka, Japan. She is a bit of a mystery, and there is no biographical information about either her education or background on the museum website or other available sources. She seems to have a major interest in the differentiation of Goryeo Celadons from their modern reproductions. In addition to the present article, she has written Goryeo Celadon in Modern Times, From Rediscovery to Reproduction, in the journal Tosetsu, Volume 735, published in June 2014. The author argues in this article that by 1934, potters under government sponsorship and those in private commercial enterprises succeeded in reproducing Goryeo-style ceramics to a point where they were virtually indistinguishable from Celadons produced during the Goryeo dynasty. An authentic Goryeo-era Celadon is seen on the left, but many of these modern pieces are unmarked. This has created confusion, and as a result, many private and museum collections have Goryeo Celadon reproductions mistaken for originals made in the 10th to 14th century Common Era. The author's methodology relies on detailed formal analysis of both modern and Goryeo-era Celadon pieces with established provenance to describe those characteristics useful in telling one from the other. An authentic 12th century Goryeo Celadon is seen on the left. She also uses primary source documents like catalogs and newspaper articles to trace the history of modern Celadon production in Korea. Some terms found in this article are Goryeo dynasty. This is the ruling dynasty that controlled the Korean peninsula from 918 to 1319 in the Common Era. Joseon dynasty. This is the period that followed the Goryeo dynasty and lasted from 1392 to 1910 in the Common Era. Yi Wangjik Art Workshop. This is a commercial enterprise established in Korea under the Japanese Ministry of the Imperial Household. Celadon was successfully reproduced here by 1915, and products of high quality were sold at reasonable prices. Some of their ceramics were presented to the Japanese emperor or used as commemorative gifts. Kilin is a mythological beast in East Asian folklore with horns, the head of a dragon, scales like a fish, and the body of a horse. They are considered to be a sign of good luck. An example of a kilin is seen on top of this modern Celadon censer. Celadon pottery is an art form of great cultural significance in Korea. The production technology for making Celadon was originally introduced from China in the 10th century. By the 11th century, Korean potters had made technical innovations and style changes that perfected these ceramics. A beautiful example of Korean Celadon from the 12th century is seen on the left. These ceramics apparently fell out of favor in the Joseon period that followed. The technology was eventually lost. Over time, as Celadon pieces were broken and discarded, Korean Celadon was largely forgotten. Soon after Korea opened its doors to foreigners in 1897, impressive examples of Korean Celadon were excavated from Goryeo-era tombs. These finds ignited an interest and appreciation by both scholars and collectors for Korean Celadon. By the early 1900s, potters in Korea and Japan were attempting to reproduce these Goryeo-style Celadon. An early collector, Horace Allen, documented in a 1901 catalog that, quote, Japanese potters do make a ware resembling old Goryeo Celadon, and Korean dealers repeatedly bring it around for sale as genuine, unquote. The quality and number of Celadon reproductions increased markedly after Korea was annexed to Japan in 1910. The Japanese government was interested in promoting the production of Celadon and established several institutions that sought to exactly replicate the original Goryeo Celadon pieces being discovered. The National Industrial Training Center was the first to succeed in 1909. The Central Laboratory of the Government General of Korea soon followed in 1913, and the Eunjin Art Workshop succeeded in producing Celadons in 1915. An example of the fine Celadons from the Eunjin Art Workshop is seen on the left, a melon-shaped ewer. The most artistically sophisticated reproductions were made by commercial enterprises like those established by Japanese businessman Tomita Gisaku. He invited skilled Japanese potters like Hamada Yoshinori and his brother Yoshikatsu to work in his Jozon art workshop. Both were soon producing high-quality Celadon ceramics. Tomita established a second kiln in 1924, and the resulting Celadon ware was labeled as Hanyang Korayaki. An example of this pottery is seen on the left. On the right is a close-up view of the Hanyang mark from the foot of the ewer. However, not all of Tomita's pieces were marked. Korean businessmen also established kilns in the Pyongyang region beginning in 1908. The Jozon Goryeo Porcelain Manufacturing Company was established in 1912. In 1934, Korean potter Han Soo-gyong was praised by a university ceramics scholar in Japan for producing a piece of pottery that perfectly replicated Goryeo Celadon. Some modern reproductions of Goryeo ceramics are so authentic in appearance, they are difficult to distinguish from original pieces made before 1400. Compounding the problem of authenticity is that few modern pieces made in the early 1900s were marked by the potter. Jung provides some ways to distinguish between Goryeo-era pieces and those that are known to be modern reproductions. Consider the two similar melon-shaped ewers on this slide. The ewer on the left is an authentic piece of Goryeo-era Celadon. Note the small incised peony and chrysanthemum decorations on the center of the body. Also note that the spout and the handle do not rise above the level of the neck. The decorative band of lotus petals at the foot are also characteristic. On the right, the modern ewer has a spout that is longer. Both the spout and the handle are higher on the neck. Notice how the central chrysanthemum and peony decorations are larger and less linear than on the authentic ewer. The band of lotus leaves is well above the foot and is seen in negative outlines against a band of white, a design pattern that never occurs in Goryeo-era ceramics. The rediscovery in the early 20th century of pottery techniques that allowed Celadon made during the Goryeo dynasty to be closely replicated remains a remarkable technological achievement. The production of Celadon is now an economically important industry in Korea, and these Celadons can be found in many modern shops throughout Korea, An example is a ceramic shop in Yaoju, seen on the left. However, because the original Goryeo era pieces and many of the early modern Celadons are unmarked, museums and private collections undoubtedly have modern reproductions mistakenly thought to be Goryeo Celadon from the 10th to 14th centuries. This is unfortunate. Because these modern pieces are not marked, they can be mistaken and thought to be fakes. Most were not intended as fakes, and many are superb pieces of art that deserve to be appreciated on their own merits. This article is well researched and understandably written by the author. The illustrations adequately illustrate the author's argument, but I would have liked more comparisons between the original Goryeo ceramics and the modern Celadon reproductions. The author also failed to discuss modern techniques of material analysis that could be used to accurately determine the age and differentiate between Goryeo era ceramics and modern productions. Some of the articles and reference material used by the author include the original 1901 catalog by Horace Allen, a newspaper article, Joseon Workshop, in the Chosen, October 1922, an article by Jung, an article by Nishihara Daisuke, Modern Japanese Crafts and the Colony, published in 2007, Okamoto Takashi's article about Samwa Kurayaki, and Yu Kun-young's article published in 2004. Thank you very much.